All right. So officially, this is the first session of our beginner investors boot camp, which is always exciting to do. We haven't done one in a long time. So this time around is going to be a lot better, a lot more concepts and things that we think will make it even easier to learn a lot of these things that you want to learn about investing. And and overall, how these work is that we usually pick, and we'll go through tonight, kind of what the agenda is for the entire boot camp. But for each class, we have examples and we go through discussions, and we overall just want to make sure that we simplify a lot of this information that you might be hearing. It's like, okay, I got a retirement plan. I don't know exactly what's going on here. I hear about stocks, don't know exactly how they work. What can I get out of them? All those things, all those basics, we'll be going over throughout the course of this boot camp. And the cool part is that I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who did the one that we did earlier this year do this one as well. So you probably notice the difference or some of the new stuff. But uh, but overall, that's pretty much what we'll go through, and we'll start tonight by just giving an outline and start to dive into some of the um, early topics in the entire boot camp. And what I would suggest is that you have a pen and paper or use a notepad on your phone or iPad or something to take notes, because you might hear something and we'll be talking and you either want to come back to it and ask a question about it, or just make sure that you remember it. So I'll definitely have something either to write with or to type with. And other than that, I think throughout the course of this boot camp, since it's much longer than a lot of our other ones, which are either 2-part or 3-part, with this being 5, we have a lot of discussions that will be happening in between the classes too, via things like our Wednesday lunch chat and some of the other classes that we'll have throughout the month. We'll always be referencing and kind of building on what we're talking about in this particular boot camp, because it basically lasts the entire month. But obviously, if you miss a live, you can always go back and watch the replay. You don't have to be with us live every night to get something out of it. So a lot of our members look at the replays rather than watching live, because life is life. You got things going on, different time zones, all types of stuff going on. So that's generally how these go. But for those again that don't know me as well as you might know Ashley, I've known Ashley since Howard. It's kind of crazy. We're going on 12 or 13 years of knowing each other. However, we both had a passion for finance in school, which led to wealth management and economic research after school, which led to us running financial advisory offices. I opened mine, and then she opened hers like a month later in Philadelphia. Mine was in DC. And so we just gotten all the way to this point where we realized that there's a lot of things missing from the process of getting a plan from your job or hearing in these commercials. There's a lot of other things that you need to know to understand exactly what's going on and how to take advantage of it, which is obviously the big pictures of how to grow your money and create more money from learning and knowing these things, which is, I'm sure, the reason why a lot of you are here to learn for your financial success, not just learn to learn. Um, so I would agree, is everybody here to try to change their financial situation, right? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, we got a yes. We got one yes. All right, cool. Um, so to start with, we got a couple slides. Okay, we got it absolutely. Okay, here we go. Now I think everybody got to that keyboard now. That's what's up. Um, so you should see on the screen, and let me know if you don't. Um, you should see the slide. Well, you should see a slide on your screen, and this is kind of will be the slides that we go through tonight. It's not a lot of information on these in particular. There will be on some of the following classes or sessions, I should say. This one, we just really want to go high level talk about some foundational things that really aren't even financially related, totally, and then go through some of the more financial things in sessions 2 through 5. Um, so we'll kind of ease into it. Ryan, oh, you just figured out how to get to the keyboard. So, oh, one other thing, because I noticed already some of your messages. When you put a message in the chat, make sure that as far as I think there's a drop down box to show who the message goes to, and make sure it's to all panelists and attendees so everybody can see your comment. Sometimes it defaults and just goes to all panelists, which means only I can see it. But you might say something that, or have a question that somebody else may have, so they can see your question and also kind of connect it with what we're talking about. So make sure when you put a message in the chat, it has all panelists and attendees on it, just so everybody can see it, because it really helps with the discussion, so everybody knows what we're like. If I start talking about something, everybody's like, "What is he talking about?" And it's like, "Oh, there's a message that somebody sent to everybody instead of just to him," just so everybody can keep up. Sometimes I ramble, to be honest, for good reason. Ramble for good reason. So, all right, here we go. So tonight, and over the course of these 5 sessions, these are all the things that we're really going to touch on. Roughly each topic is its own session, pretty much, almost. I mean, there's 6 on this list, and we got about 4 sessions, and we got to actually get through one of these tonight. So we got about 5 sessions to get through 6 topics. So we'll pretty much do that over the course of this month and the next couple of weeks. But first and foremost, what we're doing tonight, which is kind of night 1, session 1, is being clear on the mentality dynamic of what this process is as far as improving financially and building wealth and all those things that we want to do. Like, first, we got to get your mind right before your money gets right. So we talk about a lot of those things tonight, and so we'll dive deep into that tonight. But other than that, we'll talk about understanding stocks and other investments, just a general understanding of what's all out there. What is this? What is that? Is this related to this? Is this worth looking into? Some of those general questions that people always have. For instance, like we all always get questions about stocks and bonds and mutual funds, but sometimes someone's or somebody might be curious about, oh, how does Forex work, or day trading, and some of the other, like I would say, more technical investments out there instead of general big companies that we might think of when we think of stocks. But then also how to create a list of investment options. You always say, all right, here are all the things I can invest in, but what should I invest in? How do I pick that? Or how do I create that list? What is good? What is bad? What am I looking at? So we'll go through some simple things that can help you with those, answer those questions, not only on your own, but also we're obviously here to answer those questions too. But also in the future, how to kind of find those answers and understand those answers on your own. Again, also finding companies. Okay, is this company private? Is this company something I can invest in? How do I know that from either doing a Google search or looking at a particular website? How do I determine whether or not a company is available for me to invest in it? And then lastly, as far as actually buying and selling stocks and doing all those things, the different types of accounts, but mainly a brokerage account, and how to navigate those brokerage accounts, what's in them, what are the features, everything from, we're talking a lot now about DRIP. What is DRIP? Which is a dividend reinvestment plan. But we go through a lot of these things too, as far as how to make sure these things are set up within your accounts, so you're taking advantage of all the things that we talk about during the boot camp. So that's pretty much the agenda for the next 5 sessions. And tonight, really, like I said, is about the mental dynamic, and usually the part that people kind of skip over or don't want to talk about because it's like, oh, that's not important. I just need to know about this money. How do I make this money? How do I set up these accounts? Which is all great. But from Ashley would attest to this as well, from all like hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people that she and I talked to over the course of running these financial advisory offices, we realized the problem isn't the information. As far as knowing the information, is more so having the right mentality to build a new habit, stop some of the bad spending habits, all the things that you want to do to take advantage of the information, um, and making sure that things are on track as far as how you're prioritizing, so that you can invest and do some of the other things you can do with your money. So um, that's really what tonight is about. Uh, and I guess to jump into it, first and foremost, does anybody have any questions? I know I went through a lot just now. Just kind of going through what we're going to talk about, what we're going to show you how to do, what you're going to learn. Are there any questions, maybe things that you think you need to know or want to learn and just curious to know if we're going to cover it, something specific? Please let me know now, because I definitely want to address that before we dive into some other stuff. So I know there's got to be a question, and you're like, oh, I wonder if I should ask that. Ask it. That's the easiest way to success, is just to throw it out there. Don't hold back on the question, because a lot of times the questions create even more progress for everybody else. So you said I opened an account with Ameritrade and deposit. Oh, congrats! But I don't know where to go from there. Okay, I'm not sure how to understand what I'm seeing on my. Okay, all right, these are good. And okay, so that we can make sure that we spend some extra time on those topics, if possible. I'm with you. Um, so as far as how to navigate that, and that was kind of towards the end, how to navigate these accounts and what am I looking at? How do I track, I guess, progress for things that I do invest in? How do I know if it's doing well or if it's not doing so well, and what you're looking at? So we'll make sure we're covering those things in depth. Is anything anybody else wanted to either see, they're going to learn a little bit more about over the course of this boot camp, not just tonight, but just over the course of the boot camp, and I can either confirm and or elaborate? Because I mean, we pick the topics, and then just to kind of be open and transparent, we pick topics to talk about, but really and truly, a lot of what you all want to know is what drives these. So just because we want to make it that personal, if you will, where we're really getting to obviously the general basic things, but also specifically to the things that you want to learn and know, so you feel like you're getting as much out of it as possible. Okay, so all new to me, how to put an IRA account to use. Okay, okay, cool. All right. Well, I just wanted to give you all opportunities. So these are some good ones. We'll talk a little bit about IRAs, but we actually have some other resources that would be good to learn more about IRAs, and we can make sure towards the end of the class we'll talk about some of those things and how you can access. Like, we have different ebooks and things that pertain directly to IRAs. We'll make sure you get that, or get those, I should say. All right. So to start with, is really about it's about what is the why behind our finance, why we want financial progress, why, and obviously there's answers like, I want to build wealth, I want to start to have generational wealth. A lot of these typical responses to that, which there's nothing wrong with those responses, but there also has to probably be some more personal reasons as to why you want financial prosperity. Like, it's got to be something really deep, to be something that we can rely on. Is like, all right, this is going to drive me consistently. This is always important to me. This is always something on my mind, not something that could possibly come and go as far as the strength of the reason, because of how consistent we're ultimately going to need to be with a lot of these habits and um, investing techniques, and just making sure that we're focused consistently. So knowing that we have something that's going to consistently push us makes this process easier. Um, and you just have to think about it and be clear on it. Probably write it down a couple places. Um, and at first, is just, why is investing important to me? And you might not know exactly how to invest and how it works. You might feel like, okay, if I knew more, I could answer that better. But really, it's you can the answer that you'll have now, even though you might not know why exactly investing is important to you, as far as understanding exactly how it works and the ins and outs to it, you should be able to at least say, from just being in a better position financially, what would that make right in your life that is really important to you? Like, what's the goal here? What's the end goal? Because that can also help reverse engineer how much you need to invest, how long you may need to invest to be able to get to that point. And even though life happens and you probably catch a lot of momentum doing other things ultimately, and you might have aspirations of running businesses, things that make you money, but you always want to have some place where you're investing money too. So that it's doing something on its own rather than what you might be making directly. So being clear on why this process is important to you and what the end goal, that if we don't get that done, nothing else works. Nothing. Like, you can learn the ins and outs of everything. If that's not there, you'll the application of what you're about to download from this boot camp and from some of these other standoff or one-off classes is not going to matter if the why is not there. And that's just what we've learned from doing this for as long as we've been doing it, for people in person, one-on-one client relations, and also for the community. So we got one is to stop clocking in the 9 to 5 by 40. Beautiful goal. Beautiful, because that it's a time to that. So you know exactly how much time is between now and 40 for you. And you know exactly what you don't want to do anymore or don't want to have to do. And depending on what kind of income you want at that point, you can determine exactly what you need to do to get there. And then I would also ask, when you come up with these ideas, and we'll talk a little bit more about why this is going to be important as far as the exercise that we have for you all. But once you notice the answer to this question, you can think to yourself, okay, is this something that I'm really willing to make sacrifices for? Am I willing to sacrifice and take my lunch to work for 3-4 days out the week in order to ultimately be able to quit when I'm 40? Like, can I connect these little daily steps I got to do with this big picture? Is this reason strong enough for me to commit to those daily steps? And really be honest about that, because we're transparent and honest about whatever that reason is. And even if the reason is something that you might think is crazy to most people, but something important to you, it's okay for that to be the reason. Everybody doesn't have to want to quit their job. Like, I know that's the cliche reason, but some people love what they do, and that's perfectly fine. But just be in a position where they don't have to do it is even better. So your goals don't have to be what everybody says they should be. It should really, 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 really be things that mean something to you, and are very important to you exclusively. But as Aaliyah just highlighted with her goal, making sure there's a time horizon by 40 is for her. If you don't even know, you might not know the age by which you want to do something by, but to say, all right, within 10 years, or by the time your children are a certain age, there's different checkpoints that we can really align these goals with, that as far as time periods that mean something to us, not a random number. Whether it's a certain age when your kids are going to need to go to college, whatever these ages will be, And it might be 13 years from now. It's okay that that's an odd number. It doesn't have to be 10 or 15 or something even like that just because those numbers sound good. If it's an odd number, it's an odd number. And then also, we all know that this is a long-term commitment as far as the wealth building process. And I'm sure the reason you joined this community was to get information, to be empowered, to really take on that journey and realistically feel like you're making headway towards those results, which is obviously why we're doing this in the first place. But knowing that, all right, this is a full-on commitment. It doesn't mean my life changes and I eat ramen noodles every night type of commitment. It just means that it's always a focus of mine, always something that I'm at least willing to sacrifice for, and willing to make some changes and try some new things for. That's what we mean by commitment level. Not necessarily, all right, I'm not going to spend a dime and I'm just going to eat ramen noodles every night until I pay off my college debt. Like, no, that's not even real. So, when we talk about the whys, and tonight is really about doing those things. So now that we know what needs to happen and just a general idea of what these whys consist of, now it's like, okay, how do I do that effectively? And what tools and resources can I use to keep these things organized or keep these things on the forefront of my brain? And so with that, we got a couple different suggestions and ideas, things that we know have worked for a lot of people. But then also we have some tools as far as documents that we'll be able to give you access to at the end of this session, over the next, I guess, 24 hours, as far as a document that you can keep all this information on so you don't have to either make anything, or you might write it down and then lose the notebook one day, and we can just give you a document to make sure you either have it saved on your computer or in your Google Docs, whatever. If you mainly work from a phone, perfectly fine. So just to say, we'll have those resources, but when you're thinking about going through the process of documenting these things and what are some practices to do that, one of the things that we realize works, and this is kind of like a life hack, if you will, is thinking about ultimately what you want to do in life, whether that's run a business, travel the world and not work for anything and just sit back and chill, whatever it is that's going to make you the happiest, figuring out how much that lifestyle costs. Like, and really being realistic as far as the number, to say, right now, I could be completely comfortable if I had $20,000 a month coming in. Like, and we might say, oh, that's a lot. Well, it's really, I'm sure you can find ways. I'm sure everybody in this group right now can agree that they can find ways to spend $20,000 a month if I told you to figure it out. So that number is something that we can't think is out of reach as far as what we're ultimately here to accomplish. But nonetheless, whatever this number is, as far as the number that's going to support the lifestyle that you want, and this number doesn't mean just investments, but it might be just the number in which the income I need, whether I might have businesses one day, other things going on, just what the financial number is. And then we'll ultimately figure out from investing and some of the things that you can put your money into, how much of that cash flow and income can come from investments versus things you might need to do actively, which we always call active income. We'll talk a little bit more about the types of income that we can bring in. But nonetheless, we have to get clear on what those numbers are so we know what the target is, because that determines, you say, all right, I don't know how much money I want to start to invest with, or I don't know the number I ultimately need to be investing with as far as amount per month. Well, if you're starting right now, it's like I can do $25 a month, which is perfectly fine. And I ultimately want to get to a point where I'm investing $500 a month. once I pay off some debt and free up some money and start making some money from some side hustles I got, then you know at every level of that process to get from $25 a month to start to invest 500, if that's what you need to do to reach your goal, that you know the best things that you could be doing with that amount of money at each level. So that's why it's so important to know what your number is, know how much you have as a goal to either invest or what your end goal is with money. Because once we clear on those things, the how becomes very, very clear. Any questions so far? Because I know I move fast sometimes, so I just want to make sure there's no questions so far. And one of the things I would suggest though, as far as these whys and how to do them, is to think about, like, we have this dynamic where we always are wanting to help our family, right? And it's like, oh, I want to either make sure my kids, if they want to go to college, that it's paid for, or I need to help retire my parents, or I got a cousin with a great business idea and I want to help invest in it, or all these things that are related to the people that are close to us. So when you think about whoever is closest to you and what you want to be able to do for them with a better financial situation, those are really wonderful whys to have, because those people, seeing those people, interacting with those people on an everyday basis, which I'm sure you probably do, is a constant reminder of, all right, I want to be able to do more for them. I want to be able to help my child buy their first car and not feel like it's a burden to me financially, or whatever it may be. Because it might not just be things that are for you. So I'm thinking 3 more year plan on investing. Once I went on my 3-year, then 5-year plan. Okay. So yeah, and that's, and as far as the 3-year plan and 5-year plan and some of the goal setting around that, sometimes individuals don't know how much you can really get accomplished in that amount of time with investing. And we can also talk about what are some sustainable type goals, because I hate to say reasonable, because reasonable is such a broad word. But if it's like, all right, and realistic too, because anything that's real is realistic. So and a lot of times, and the reason and the meaning of the word is good, it's just that sometimes people hear that, they cap their thinking to say, okay, what is realistic, when in fact I'm sure somebody out there has makes $20,000 a month from investments, that, okay, if somebody else did it, it's realistic. So there's nothing out of reach. So that's the only, I know exactly what you mean, Ryan, but a lot of times people see that word and it's like, oh, well, okay, let me limit what I was wanting to do so I could be realistic. But we definitely don't want that. Like, whatever it is that you want, that's what you want. We got to figure out how to meet that expectation and that goal rather than lower the expectation or goal, because anything is achievable. So it makes no sense to lower the bar if we don't have to. So and that kind of goes. That was kind of the segue to what a legacy means for your family. And we toss around this word because the word sounds good. And it's like, when I say it, it makes me feel purposeful that I am working to try to create a legacy. But if we're going to be 100% about what these legacies look like and what we're going to do to make them, we know that there's going to take sacrifices. And it might be sacrificing in working that job you don't like for a little bit longer than you really want to, just so you can set yourself up to make the next move in life. Or it might be, instead of taking 3 trips a year right now, it might be taking 2 trips a year so I can have some more money to put somewhere that's growing for me. And so, and we're not talking drastic sacrifices like you can't do anything, you got to sit in the house, because that's not the best way to be happy in what you're doing, to stick with it. Like, you got to enjoy the process, or you're not going to stick to something that you don't enjoy. So we definitely have to make it so that you're enjoying the process of what you're accomplishing with these sacrifices. It just can't be cut stuff off and try to force myself to be happy with not living a life in the moment and being present. Um, and we know this can be up and down process, and that along the way there might be times where you have to sacrifice. And um, and when you think, this is always the one that we always harp on, and I want to talk about this for a minute before we move on to the next topic, because this is very important. And we often want the for our next generation things that we didn't have. And it's like, oh, I didn't do this, so I want this for the next generation, which is fine. However, we also can't allow that to us, we can't allow that thought to distract us from all the other things that we could do and accomplish. Not just, all right, I have student loans, so I just want to make sure my child goes to college without loans. Like, yeah, we can do that, but let's not punt everything else because that's the one thing that was a thorn in your side. Let's collectively do everything that's out there that's possible, and also massage the thing that might have affected you in your life that you obviously want to make better for the next generation. And making sure that we keep focus of everything, even those things that really might be important to you because you experienced it yourself. So we also have to keep that in mind, because I'm sure, yeah, Kashima, because I'm sure you all would agree. And I'm curious to know if there was one thing that you would want to make sure is better for your children or grandchildren than was for your experience in life, especially in your childhood. What would be that thing, or even growing into an adult? What is that thing that you want to make sure you can provide for your descendants that you didn't have available to you, or a luxury that you might not have had? What I want you all to name some, because I'm curious to know. Because a lot of times it's the same things, but I want to know what it is for you all. What are some things that it's like, I got to make sure my kids have this, and because it's something that you grew up without, or an opportunity that you didn't have, or uh, something that you didn't do when you were younger that maybe a lot of other kids got the opportunity to do. What are some of those things that you all want to make sure is accessible to the following generations? Okay, just the information and the knowledge. I want to teach them to think and be hopeful about their future. All right, no, that's real. Information and knowledge go a long way, go much further than some of the material things that we obviously want for those generations. To be honest, those things go far. As far as information and knowledge, I didn't have much guidance. Feel like I'm paying for it. Okay. Financial literacy. So just not making the same mistakes, putting your children or grandchildren in a position where you're not there. Maybe you don't even make mistakes that you made, even though you're the one that's breaking the cycle. Like, there might be things that you've already done that it's like, all right, I want to make sure they don't do that because I did that. Not just things that you learn that you can immediately pass down. So yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. Um, Private school, clothes, vacation. I want to provide my niece the same, but also how to make and grow more. So okay, so that's interesting. So what's your, if you don't mind me asking, um, what's your more look like? Like, you what I if because a lot of times, and I hate to call you out, but I think this is a great example. A lot of times we look back as things we didn't like about childhood as far as to find things that we want to accomplish or do. But being that you had uh quote unquote a comfortable, which listed private school, clothes that you might have wanted and going on vacation, though I'm sure those things didn't make life just bliss just because you participated in those things. What would you want to build on to provide for your niece in addition to those things which are great things? So my family didn't have the struggle. Oh, okay. Oh well, yeah. I'm sure. It takes. Oh, I wasn't saying that it didn't take a lot of work, but if you might have had things that other things too. But oh yeah, I know in any situation, being being able to go to private school, which we all know is costly, and then obviously being able to take vacations and clothes, that those things take sacrifices and work to obtain. So that's for sure. Um, but has anybody ever felt? I'm actually got a question. Has anybody? Oh, it's one other thing. The more is that she can live a life without struggling. She has knowledge. Okay. Um, perfect. So, does anybody ever feel like, all right, I know what I want, and I know it's going to take some sacrifice to get there, but I don't know what I do first. Like, what's the next step? Anybody ever feel like that? Like, I know exactly what needs to happen, but I don't know what the next best step is. What do I what do I do at this very moment? That's the smartest thing for me to do. Does anybody ever feel like that, or think that, or at least have that concern that, all right, is this next move my best move? Anybody? Yeah, feeling stuck is, yeah, that's kind of the same thing. It's like if you're feeling stuck, that means that you probably you always have options. You always have options. So feeling stuck is like I don't know what to choose. So yeah, that could definitely apply. Um, Carmen says yes. So when you get to this point of, all right, I I want to do something and I don't know what to do. What's like your reaction to that? Do you shut down? Do you go through the rabbit hole of google.com and just start Googling your heart out and not really know what to do with all this stuff? Like, do you, like, when you realize I don't know what to do next, if you had to be honest, what's your reaction to feeling that feeling, like to being in that predicament? What do you do something, or do you not do something? What's next when you felt that, for those that say yes? Okay, so you keep going. Majority of the time I overthink and pointed to end up doing nothing. Okay. Um so some of you keep going and some of you get to a point where you're kind of overthinking and kind of have paralysis by analysis. Um Anybody else have any reactions to just not knowing what to do next, and what do you do? Like, what do you do when you don't know what's next? Do you just stop? Do you call somebody and ask somebody what, like, that you think may have a good idea? And I'm just talking about from a financial sense and financial steps. Um, Keep making more mistakes. Uh, Sometimes I try to get more information to help. Okay. All right. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about throughout the course of this boot camp. With each step, with each step, uh, it's a matter of all right, what do I do next with this information? Because we're going to go through a lot of general information. There's big picture stuff and also some detail in there. But then it's like, all right, what's the next step for me based on where I'm at? And one of the things, as I said before, is that when you feel that feeling where, all right, I got that, I get this, I understand that, yet I don't know what the immediate thing to do is with this information, please, please say something. Because that's exactly what we want you to react to and to speak on, because that's where the gap is closed, right there, when it's like, all right, I get what you all just explained, that made sense, I never heard it like that before, but I don't know what to do with that right now. And do I do something with that right now, or do I kind of hold that until I do something else? Like, whenever you think that thought, please, please, please bring it up. And that's because that's that piece that is missing, more times than not, is what's next. Because a lot of this stuff, you'll realize, and you probably already know, it's not too far off from, okay, that's kind of common sense, that makes sense, especially when it's simplified and not big mumbo jumbo words that is like you need a financial dictionary to understand. But what these things mean in layman's terms. And even to get deeper on the money part, and I got one on here that kind of seems like it is off, but I'll explain it. When you think about why financial growth is important to you and why it matters to you, not just from the sense of some of the things you'll be able to do, but really thinking about money itself. Like, why is money, like, how can I make sure I look at money as something important and not necessarily something that I'm kind of dreading the fact that I have to deal with? And it's like, oh, money, like, you want, because, and that is also very, very important, because a lot of times we don't even know it. When we think about money, and we also always think about having a lot of it, but because we're usually thinking about it from where we're at right now in life and not necessarily being in the greatest position, we dread it, which is not going to help us in the grand scheme as far as really being committed to all the little different things that we're going to need to do to put ourselves on the right track to where we want to be. So again, like, what inspires you to really be better? And sometimes it is your kids. Sometimes it is a certain career goal. I want to be able to achieve something. I wanted to own a certain property, not just a house, but own a building, or something that inspires you, that it's like, I got to do this in my life. This is part of my purpose. And the last one is a kind of a kind of a play on words. But when you think about life now and technology, um, and when we think about technology and its impact on our finances, I'm sure you think about it sometimes, but when you think about Amazon and all these ways that have made it easier to spend money, um, and then you think about electric cars and the way the technology is going, and that's why I kind of threw this kind of curveball in there. I always do something like this. Y'all probably will notice. Is these things that are going to cost a lot to my life, things I want to buy, especially as technology continues to improve, and things that are going to make our lives easier, because that's what we spend our money on. If we're going to be honest, we spend our money on things that make life more convenient. That's why we stop at fast food, as small as things as food and the convenience of food, to other things in our life that makes our life easier. That's what we end up buying. And when you think about technology and how it's going to make our lives easier, we're going to spend our money on that, and we're not going to, and sometimes, not say not going to, but sometimes we're going to get distracted from things that we can be doing to invest our money. So when we think about the impact of technology and how it's going to make it easier for us to not only spend the money, when we have things like Apple coming out with a credit card and just really understanding what's really happening right now as far as what are they doing to keep me as a consumer versus me being somebody that's an investor that's kind of financially free. Like there's so many things happening right now in the technology space that are like, oh, I can order on Amazon and get my product in a day, and soon to be I'll be able to get my products in the same day. Like, am I going to? It's probably going to influence me to spend more money just because I know it's more convenient. I don't even have to leave my house to spend money. Usually, it used to be that you can't spend money unless you leave your house. You got to go to the store. But once you can spend money and not even leave your house, and gets that much easier, we got to think about how to make sure we stay ahead of that with making sure we do what we want to, what we need to do for our financial goals, rather than fall into the lure of ways that we'll be able to spend our money, especially as it gets easier and easier to spend money. And I'm sure that's something that you all experience. Like, dang, like I feel like everywhere I turn, like I'm spending money, and it feels like everything that I'm doing, I need to do in my life, but it seems like it's just everything costs money. And a lot of times, those things that we end up thinking about that in that way are things that we do out of convenience that might not necessarily need to happen, or need to be purchased or bought. So that's really critical to financial growth as well. Um, and figuring out what it means to me, and making sure that investing matters more than being a consumer. Um, and so these are some of the things that we want you to take away from tonight. And we're gonna spend this last time really doing question and answer, and giving you all an opportunity to give us an idea of what you want to learn and focus on. I know we mentioned some of them before, and I know there was a couple questions earlier that you said you might want to wait to ask because it's kind of deep. But before we end tonight, and some of the things that we're going to talk about, just to say, all right, what do I do now that we've gone through this first session before the next session, before we really get into the technical, not technical, I hate to say that and make it scary, but before we get into the details of understanding investing, how to do it, when to do it, what to invest in, how to track it, how to find companies, all those things. Um, Again, one thing I would suggest, and our next session is on Thursday, and I want to go into this right now as far as this why and this statement. And this, we stop calling it homework because it's not homework. It's exercises that you can choose to do that we are going to give you feedback on, to try to help you as much as we can with things that we have learned that work, with a lot of these different tools and resources that we're going to give you. So for the first one, and this is something you might want to write down and make a note of so that you can go back and do it. If you don't do it immediately, go back and do it in a couple of days or at some point throughout the course of this boot camp. And that is to, you're going to write this paragraph and you're going to email it to us. So, but I'm going to give you an idea of what needs to be in this paragraph, so that the exercise kind of lines you up and is meaningful to everything else that we're going to go through, because everything is kind of connected throughout the course of these boot camps. So first and foremost, it makes a lot of sense to go through them in order. You might want to skip around and say, okay, I just want to learn something about stocks. I'm just going to wait till session 4. Or I want to learn something about this. This is in session 2. Let me just focus on session 2. We really, really encourage you to go through each one of them one by one in the correct order, because it's going to make some of these exercises make even more sense. Yes, it will be helpful to do them just in general, even if they weren't all together and in order. However, them being in order makes them that much more impactful. So the first one, is, even though we're kind of closing in on the end of 2019, And we're really in the home stretch of what, the last 4 or 5 months of the year, which is crazy. Hold on. This is September. We're the last 4 months. Wow. We're in the last 4 months of 2019, y'all. We're gonna look up, it's gonna be Thanksgiving and Christmas. So knowing that, we really, really, really have to get locked and loaded on what we're going to make happen before the end of the year, knowing, obviously, we all know holiday season, we spend money. It's okay. Is We can tell the truth, shame the devil. Like, we spend money during holiday season. Um, but what's up, Michelle? But we have to come up with a plan to know, all right, around those events that I can put some money to the side for, or I have an idea of how much I usually spend during that time of year, and still be able to knock some check marks off of our goal list in these last couple months, even if at the very moment you are completely brand new to investing. If you don't know a stock from a mutual fund and couldn't tell me the first thing about your retirement plan, that is perfectly fine. But we're going to make it so that in the next 4 months, you know how to do a lot of things that, even though, as Michelle said, it's a marathon, it definitely is a marathon, that you can start off running at a very good pace and not feel like I can't because it's holiday season. I spend money on gifts and travel. We're going to make sure that we still end this year on a strong note. So, exercise number one, or the exercise is more so associated with the number one on this screen, is to write a paragraph, and this is what it needs to be about. To write a paragraph about why financial growth is important to you for the rest of 2019. And obviously, thinking about the big picture, you're obviously probably going to reference things that you want to start to set up that ultimately going to grow into great things. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of get on the right track for 2020 type responses. This is perfectly fine. Whether it's you're in setup mode for next year, whether you're finishing strong through the finish line and want to do as much as you can do in 2019 and go into 2020 with a lot of momentum, whatever your mindset is right now. And that might be the short-term detail as far as why you want to get locked in for the rest of the year, but also include why doing that is also so important to you for the bigger picture of financial growth. Like, all right, like for instance, I want to finish paying off these credit card debts in 2019 so that I can start my business in 2020 that I ultimately want to turn into a business I pass down to my son. Like, literally talking about something in the near future that's connected to something bigger. So I'll repeat that. To write a paragraph, and you're going to type this paragraph up and email it to us. So you can write it down or you can type it straight into your email. And I'll give you the email address once I finish explaining it. Is to write a paragraph on why financial growth is important to you. And I kind of added on to that, especially as we close out 2019. So some of the things that you wanted, some of the reasons why you want to make sure you get things rolling right now in the last couple months of this year. And also to connect it with some bigger things as far as, okay, I want to do that now, and this is why, as far as the bigger thing. So I gave the example of, all right, I want to pay off my credit cards and get rid of this monthly payments that I got so that I can ultimately start a business and be able to invest in my business to get it going, rather than not sitting over here paying credit cards off. So, and obviously the business might be something that you want to grow and pass down to your kids. And that's kind of the bigger dynamic of it. So what you would do now, and connected to possibly things that the bigger picture, but you're going to write this paragraph and you're going to email it to And this is the email address for the community. That if you have any other questions, and I'm typing it in, if you have any other questions, want to get in contact with us, whatever it is that you might have some trouble with, you email us at this email. But this is also the email in which you're going to send this paragraph to. And when you send the paragraph to us, this is what we're going to do. We are going to read it, review it, and also give you some feedback on how you can make the paragraph, I guess, a quote unquote strong paragraph, so that if you read it, you felt moved and inspired to keep going, keep fighting for the things that you want to accomplish. And just certain dynamics when you, it's kind of almost like from a goal setting perspective and kind of critiquing it from a standpoint. It's like, oh, if I would elaborate on this, or this seems like it means a lot to you, I would talk a little bit more about that, just to make it like, oh, you might want to add another sentence about this there. It seems like something that really important to you based on what you just explained. So we'll give you that feedback. And I know some of you might have already done that, and I responded to it already. But that's number one. So I'm going to type this out so that everybody can have it. I'm going to type it out in the chat box. I'm typing it right now. So give me 1 second. All right. So I put it in the chat box. And yeah, just make sure it's something that inspires you. And like, you're only cheating yourself if you say, "Oh, I want to be rich and not work." Like, I think because it's everybody. We don't. I mean, when I say not work, not have to work. A lot of us want to work and want to be productive. That's fine, but not have to work. I mean, that's all of us. We don't want to have to work, and we want to have freedom of time and be able to buy what we want to buy. But make it specific. Make it something that really, when you read it, it's like, man, those things really matter to me. That's really why I want financial growth. At least doing this for my son or my daughter. Doing this for my parents. Doing this for maybe another member. Doing this for myself. Proving to myself that I can get to a certain point in life. Like, what are like real things, and be as transparent. Again, this is a judgment-free zone. We're not gonna read these and like think anything crazy. This is a matter of getting better and making sure you have all the pieces in place to make this process as smooth as possible. Things that are going to make it fail proof. Because this is the one thing we all hate. We hate starting something, being motivated. Oh my man, I'm gonna crush this. I'm gonna kill this. This is it. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. This is it. This is it. This is it. And then 2 weeks later, man, I thought that was gonna work, but I don't know. Like, we all know we've been there. Each one of us. I don't care who you are, where you're from. You've been there before, and we know that is a no man's land that we have all been in. Let's not act like that's not been the case with almost everything that we've ever done before, which is why we're here right now to find the next thing that's going to really stick, which is, of course, the Wealth Builders 101 community. So that is number one, uno, as far as what you're going to want to do immediately as we start the rest of this boot camp. Again, email that to us. Give us maybe a day or so to give you feedback on it and give you some of that feedback and respond. just so if you want to make changes and use it, great. If you don't want to use the feedback, perfectly fine too. We just want to give you any extra ideas or guidance that we could possibly give you based on experience with some of these things that we're all looking to collectively get better at. And then, as I said before, you're gonna learn about the stock market. I'm sure a lot of you here are curious about the stock market. You hear stuff about the stock market. You might hear stuff in the news. You might flip by some of those channels and see all these numbers and tickers scrolling past the bottom of the screen and not know what you're looking at. You might see an article on CNBC and you start to read the article and it's like, I have no idea what they're talking about. And you want to know, and you want to know also how you can use this information to your advantage, and just have more confidence in what you're doing with your money, whether it's just a retirement plan at your job, whether it's an account that you are investing in for your kids, whether it's something you're doing for yourself to have more money to travel, whatever the reason is, and just making sure that you're more confident in that. And the company that you might really like, that you know make money, that you say, hey, I spend all my money there, I need to own a piece of that company so I can get something out of that, out of spending my money with them. Like all these things that we know are possible, but just haven't been able to learn or take advantage of. That is what this is for. This is not just learn stuff. Oh, that was nice to know, and just kind of sit on it. We're going to have action steps that you should be comfortable with after these sessions, just like we have a couple action steps tonight where it's like, all right, we went through enough for me to be comfortable with doing that. I can do that and be ready for the next session to build upon that. And not something that it's like, oh, that kind of sounds like it's out of my league. I'm going to subconsciously procrastinate and not do it. And I know I need to do it, but I don't really get it. So I'm not going to touch it yet. Like, no, we want to make sure that you get clear enough that it's like you want to make immediate action because there's no reason not to, because you know exactly what's going on. And then one of the cool things you're going to get access to, and this is what's really helpful, as far as keeping all of this stuff organized and always having like a home base when it comes to this information that you're going to be keeping track of more frequently and staying on top of, whether it's your budget, ultimately what my net worth is, what my goals are. What else is on here? How to, my profit and losses. Like, there's a whole bunch of different tabs and information in this spreadsheet document that we are going to give you access to. And this is one of the, I guess, deliverables is the best word, that you'll be able to use if you want to use. Or I'm sure some people have said, oh, I'm kind of good with the system I use, I don't need it, but thanks for sharing it. Again, we're not forcing you to use this. We encourage you to use it because we know everything is on there that you could possibly ever want to keep track of financially. But you don't have to use it. But we're going to give you access to that. Some of the exercises that we're going to talk about in some of these other sessions, we made spaces in the document to store that information. Whether it's we do a session, we might talk about how to calculate your net worth, and there's a page in the spreadsheet that automatically calculates it for you, and their formula is already set there. Or I need to know where I spend my money on a monthly basis, and you get registered to use Mint, and that tells you your budget, and you can transfer those numbers and store them on the spreadsheet rather than trying to remember them and trying to organize this stuff in your brain, which hasn't been working thus far. So we're going to give you access to that. We have everybody's email because when you registered for tonight's session and got the link, we got your email, so we know who to send this access to. So you'll be receiving that in the next 24 hours as far as access to the net worth. We call it a net worth spreadsheet, but it's not just for net worth. it does a whole lot of other things, as I just mentioned. We just called it that because that's one of the coolest features in it. And we have instances where we always update those net worths and just to keep track of the progress. All right, I'm paying off debt and my investments are growing and I'm seeing my net worth drastically improve, which is really one of the indicators when you think about the big picture of building wealth. That's one of the indicators to say I am wealthy based on what my net worth is. It's not the only indicator, but it's a very, very good indicator. And that is one of those big picture numbers that we always want to make sure we are getting better at and growing on that number. So that's why we've highlighted that particular portion of the document, because that's the war. We got all these battles that we're about to fight in learning and financial awareness and financial progress. So we got all these battles, but that's the war. What is my net worth? Am I 100 millionaire, 200 millionaire, billionaire, so forth and so on? And I'm going to track my way because whatever is measured improves. Whatever you measure actively always improves because you are now going through the process of understanding what gets you results. So when things are measured, things improve. So when we're measuring it, you might not say, oh, I'm scared to look at it. I'm scared to know that number is so bad right now. It's negative. I got more debt than I got investments. That is 99% of Americans. It's okay. We all are starting from that predicament where we are all negative, looking to go positive and obviously go positive in a big way as far as that number being a positive number. So we need to know where it is right now so that one, first and foremost, we can get to even ground and get to zero if we do have more debt than we do have in investments or things that we own. And then once we get to zero, then really playing the game of doing a lot of the things that you want to do from an investment standpoint that become easier when you can go into a bank and show them that you have a positive net worth rather than you having more debt than assets. Kind of opens up the gate to getting that business loan, to getting funding for something that you want to do that you might need to get from the bank. That is not always comes down to credit. Very rarely in the game of investment does it come down to credit because there's not one investment in this world that requires your credit score. So we're talking about net worth and ultimately something called a financial statement that becomes your key to bigger and better investments, not just in the stock market, but in the real world, as far as things that you can do with your money to invest it. So we'll give you access to that. And at the same time, we'll be expecting to start to receive your paragraphs on why financial growth is important to you. And then in the midst of getting those basic things to you and that to us kind of lays the foundation for everything that we're going to talk about in the next 4 sessions, that will either reference these whys or tools that we'll use to document some of these numbers as we're learning them for ourselves. Once we get a chance to understand how to calculate it and where my investments are, how much is there, and adding these numbers into this document so that it gives you the answer instead of you feeling like you got to calculate everything.